presentation this morning, and I'm going
Please
to...
don't set the bar so high.
No,
It is Sunday morning on the last day. You know everybody was out late last night.
I believe in your fabulousness. I do. And that's right. And I'm going to introduce Jennifer and James today. So, Jennifer Sparrow is the Director of Emerging Technologies and New Ventures at Virginia Tech. For more than 15 years, she has championed the use of technology to engage students in the learning process. She has a passion for working with faculty to explore new technologies and their potential implementations in teaching and learning. Jennifer received her bachelor's degree from Smith College, her master's degree from Florida Gulf Coast University, and doctorate from the University of Central Florida. She is currently the chair of the EDUCAUSE Learning Initiative Advisory Board and serves on the EDUCAUSE Evolving Technologies Committee. She's a part-time blogger, infrequent tweeter, technology explorer, and struggling photographer with a biting sense of humor and not enough hours in her day. Her colleague is James, and James Dustin has dedicated 15 years to working at the INNOVATIONSPACE, a multimedia computer lab serving the faculty, staff, and students at Virginia Tech, and he is the operations coordinator there. James started working as a student lab assistant, and he has enjoyed continuing to work there and helping the lab grow into what it is today. So welcome, and here we go.
I do need to add one more piece to James's title or James's duties. He is our equipment Nazi. That term was thrown out the first day we were here, and I looked over and nudged him. He goes, everybody needs one. So all of this that you're seeing here today would not be possible without my equipment Nazi, because if you don't have one, you should get one. James is available for training. He will come out and teach your folks how to be OCD about your equipment in a really good way, so that the equipment's always running. If there is the most minor of scratches, issues, concerns, non-functionality, not only is James really handy in terms of getting things functioning again, but he notices those things and rapidly takes care of them. So when we talk about the volume of loans that we're talking about here, not just iPads, but in the innovation space overall, you need somebody just like him. And I don't worry about things in the lab when I'm gone, because I know that they're going to be taken care of entirely. So we had 2 students as well. You may have seen them yesterday afternoon. They were here as just support, so you could ask them questions about actually loaning them out to people. They didn't make it down this morning, so I didn't require them to be here. If you do have any questions, we just put together a hashtag LLL 2012, so Loaner Lessons Learned 2012. But you can also just ask us questions. I had put it in there that we would have an electronic gathering for those, so I want to make sure we fulfilled that piece of it as well. So a quick little background to this. Some of you heard the story already, but about 3.5 years ago, I picked my family up from Southwest Florida, and we moved to Blacksburg, Virginia, because of the innovation space. So I went up there. This was a job interview. When I saw the resources that Virginia Tech had committed to doing technology this way, I felt like this was something that it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. My husband had been born and raised in Fort Myers, Florida. He didn't own a winter coat. I'm not kidding. So this move was a big, giant move for us. Our families were all down there. This was a big deal. But when you can see the support that we've gotten from the institution, I think you would not question that decision as well. When we first got there, I was there in 2009. There was sort of the buzz was starting to come out late 2009 about the iPads. And I asked my boss, can we get some iPads? He's, yeah, how many? And well, I don't know. How many can we get? And he said, tell me a number. And so I didn't realize, you really had to ask high and work down from there. So we got a significant number that were distributed internally to folks. But we got 10 for loaning, which was fabulous. My last institution I was at, I asked for 10 headphones and was told to go, see if I could get them donated from the local TV station. So when I got 10 iPads, I was thrilled. So we'll talk about the story and the evolution of that and sort of what came next. So, James, you want this?
Yeah, absolutely. Did anybody come to the Space Camp session yesterday?
Okay.
Excellent. So you've heard this speech before. This will be the condensed version. First off, anybody heard of Lewis Black, comedian? Okay. So last night when we went down after everything was done, we went to the floor, That's immediately what I thought of. Lewis Black said, whenever you go to Vegas, he said, take all your money and put it in quarters. Go back to your room and sit in the bathroom. Put a quarter in the toilet, pull the handle. And he said, every once in a while, it'll back up, and some quarters will come back, and you can feel like a winner. So, that's about right. The Innovation Space originally started as the New Media Center, or one of the New Media Centers, if anyone here is familiar with the New Media Center Consortium. One of the original institutions, started in 1993 or 94, something like that. I don't know, let's see what talking points we have. Started in the library, which a lot of you work in. So we had a 20-seat classroom / lab space. Started as a faculty development classroom, opened up as lab space when the classes were in session. Moved to Torgerson Hall in 2000, which was the Advanced Communication Building. A great opportunity for us to greatly increase in space, triple the space, which let us have a dedicated classroom, a dedicated lab space. We serve, our original purpose was training faculty. Since they didn't utilize it as much as maybe we liked, or we had all this equipment that was sitting around not being used, we opened it up to undergrads. And we'll actually talk about that with the iPads too here in a minute. But our usage went up greatly once we started allowing undergrads. Just a typical example, last month we saw like 1,000 people in, and 500 of that was just equipment loans. So we loaned over 100 pieces of equipment. Digital cameras, digital still cameras, digital video cameras, iPads, audio recorders, light kits, mic kits, tripods, things like that. So we have over 100 pieces that we maintain. And we checked them out 500 times last month. 98% of that was to undergrads. We do loans for a 3-day period. We used to do week loans. But even with 100 pieces, we would end up after a few days, nothing left. We'd open up the drawers and literally they're all empty. And then some poor student who's got a project due on Friday, we'd have to tell him on Tuesday, we won't have anything back till next Tuesday. So we shortened the loan period and try that out to see, well, how much time does someone need to do a project? How much time do you need a video camera to film your project? So we shortened it to 3 days to try it out, and it's been that way ever since. We get a lot more, I don't know, not to say churning, but turnover. That's a much better word. A lot more turnover, and very few people say that 3 days isn't enough. People that actually do have projects and classes and things like that that need extra time, we work with them, and we extend due dates. That's no big deal for the folks that need it. We serve everybody on campus, faculty, staff, and students. We're actually agnostic in that we've got plenty of places on our campus that say they're faculty only, or this lab is engineering only, or something like that, but we don't care. We'll help anybody and everybody. We're even charged with helping the general public in the area. As long as everything's not for profit, we'll gladly help anybody out. If you came in and wanted to learn Dreamweaver, I'd gladly teach you. If you wanted to learn Dreamweaver because you wanted to make a website to sell your photography, then we might have to talk, or not talk about that. I always say, I'll teach you to make a website about your family or your personal life, and then if you take that knowledge and do something else with it, that's your prerogative. But we're only going to learn about free things here. Everything's free. That's the best part. Everything we do is free. We try to stay away from anything that might cost money. There is a printer in the lab, but that is done through Central University Printing. They handle the money and the cards and everything like that. So everything we do is free as long as it's done on time and without damaging stuff. As long as things are brought back within the 3 days and in the condition we checked it out in and having all of its parts, everything's free. Anything after that, we charge like actual cost. So if I have to repair something, we'll send it out. I'll literally give them a copy of the bill and say, this is what I'm going to charge to your student account. Late fees, we charge varying amounts depending on the value of the item and like the demand of the item. And we do that all through the university's system, just like you would like a late library book, which is amazing that we got tagged into that system. Before we had that ability, we had this whole like warning system where first time you were late, we went, you were late, don't do it again. Second time, I'm not kidding, that same thing written, like, The third time, we just didn't allow you to check anything out anymore. So you could literally come in, take a piece, keep it all semester. And it was the first time you just get the finger shaken at you, which is ridiculous. So we had to fight hard to get into that system. It was not an easy request. It wasn't, hey, can we charge late fees? There was a lot of red tape and administrators that didn't want that to happen. So it was a battle.
There are still administrators that don't want that to happen. Okay, so we're going to call this iPad Load 1.0 because this has gone through 3 iterations now. So the first part of this, maybe, we got 10 iPads shortly after they were released. Those went into circulation almost immediately. As James mentioned, they were 3-day loans. These were limited to faculty and staff because we had sort of this history that we would try new items with faculty and staff and then release them out to the larger student population. This was really a try before you buy, so faculty would come in because this was brand new. Not everybody had the technology in their hands. It was really a good opportunity, I think, for faculty to come and say, hey, is this something I want my department to purchase for me? Is this something that I'm not interested in at all? And we got a lot of interesting feedback from faculty, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But we didn't put any extra apps on it when we first sent it out. We just sent it out the way it was. So whatever standard apps came on there, maps and email, and we would help people get those pieces set up. But again, I mentioned faculty and staff only. For some of our more expensive equipment, we loan it out to students, but they need a faculty requester for that. We thought these coming out that it really was important for us to just think about how that was going to go and sort of field that with the faculty first. I can tell you, our very first loan that went out, so we did 90 in the first semester. Our very first loan that went out, okay, I'm not moving forward. I'm redoing the same slide. Can you get me to the next slide? Sorry. I know we didn't have 2 of those in there. It is early. There we go. So our very first iPad went out. We started talking to people. We didn't really do any advertising, word of mouth mostly, and so talking to people. We live in a very small town, so I'll see people everywhere and let them know, hey, we've got these iPads in. They're available for loan. James has a listserv of folks that are IT related on campus. We let them know that it was there. So we have this faculty person who works over in the registrar's office. And you never want to make enemies with the registrar, right? There's just certain people that you can't make enemies with. The FERPA police on our campus is the registrar, so we don't want to go there. So a guy checks it out. We give him a case. We put it in the case for him. We hand it to him with a charger and say, have fun. Let us know in 3 days how it worked. I think he brought it back late. I'm trying to recall the very basics of the story.
Oh, yeah.
So it was due in 3 days. I think he called me the 4th day because he had gotten the reminder email from James that it was late. He goes, oh, can I keep this for a couple more days? Sure. That we have 10 of them. I've got like 3 checked out. Of course, we'll work with you. So he brings it back a week later, pulls it out of his briefcase. It's not in the case. It's just freestanding. Drops it on the desk, and then pulls out the case and the charger separately. And it came back with these scratches on the face of the iPad. Vehemently denied that this was him. A student was there. He said, no, I didn't do that. There's no way. And you could just clearly see that they were key scratches on there. So I think James and I looked at each other that day and said, what have we gotten ourselves into? This is a faculty memory. We looked at this is the first loan. What's this going to cost to repair? At what point do we start repairing? Those are all great questions because we know they're going to get little nicks and scratches. We understand that that's part of the wear and tear of the equipment. However, that was really not even something that we could send out and check out to somebody else again because of the level of the scratches on it. So we have a name for him internally. We won't share that with you. But he gets the evil eye when he comes in. So we really realized, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, vehemently denied it when returned it. A year or 2 later, laughs about it.
Yes.
Whenever you check, he'll take one out, a week or 2, he'll take one out, this semester, and I'll come in and go, oh, maybe I'll scratch this one too, or ha ha ha.
Yeah. So, we can talk about the late fees in a little bit, but we get some of that, not too much. People are generally typically friendly and willing to work with us, and so glad that they can get this equipment for free. So There's been a long set of issues with that. So we had small-ish loans going out. So we had these 10 iPads in June of 2011. We were able to make a much larger purchase of the iPad 2s. So we had enough interest, enough feedback from faculty, staff, that they were in fact interested in this. So this time I got smarter. My boss said to me when the iPad 2s came out, he goes, "How many do you want?" I said, 150. And he said, "Okay." So I did a little happy dance. We took 130 of those and set those aside for classroom loans. We'll talk about that. So full classes get an iPad for the entire semester. And we put 20 into circulation as of June of 2011. We also at that time, because we had more than 10, we're actually increased a little bit, we decided to include students in that. And I can tell you the students have taken just as good a care of the iPads as the faculty have for the most part. So we didn't have a lot of repeats of what you saw before. We've changed the loan from 3 days to 7 days. So really the usage and the demand had changed. It really went from with the iPad 1s when this was very brand new technology from I want to try this before I buy it to I would really like to have this for 7 days. I'm going to a conference. I'd like to have all of my materials on there. I'm going to use Dropbox. And I'm not going to be back in 3 days. So we extended that loan period and we made it available to students as well. This semester, so we had 193 in the fall of 2011. We decided 193 loans of the iPads in the fall of 2011. And we decided that we would include some apps on there. So we bought some standard apps that we put on an image. We placed that image, replaced that image every time the iPads come back in. But we had pages, numbers, and Keynote. And we sort of left it at that. We let folks know when they were checking it out if there were free apps that they wanted to put on, they could plug it into their iTunes and download those, and it wasn't going to erase the image. They could go onto the App Store and purchase or download free apps from there, and that would also not erase the current image. So we had good success with that. We haven't had many people say, why doesn't this come with X, Y, and Z as well? So this is our loan form. This has actually evolved over time, and I just want to talk about this a little bit. And again, I mentioned, I was joking about James being the equipment Nazi, but this has really helped us because we have 13 student employees that work the front desk. They check the equipment in and out. We are often not there and present when the equipment goes in and out, and we're not standing over their shoulder watching all of this. That's why we have them, so we can do our jobs as well. So for our standard over-the-counter loans, iPad number at the top, date in and date out, and then you can see their name, their local phone number, and their PID, which is our PID. It's the first part of your email address at Virginia Tech. You'll notice right there it says fines for equipment returns. It gives them in very deep, bold letters how much the late fee is going to be, although 95% of the students don't read this. They just sign their name. Sometimes that's a good lesson for them. So neoprene bag, a rugged case, and then we check to see that the case or screen are unscratched. If they are scratched, we mark it on the out diagram. The power adapter, the USB cable, and the iPad 2. We've added these additional items. When we purchased those iPad 2s, we decided we were getting folks that really wanted to do projection. So we got the VGA and the HDMI adapters so that they could do some projection with those. The USB camera adapter, we haven't gotten too much request for that, have we, James?
No, ma'am.
And the SD card adapter, which I think more folks are asking for that. But here's the legalese. We can write on here, there's a spot on the case if there's a problem. And we've got the employee signs it and the equipment loaner signs it. And we do this check process in front of the individual with the equipment on the table. So it's very important that they see, here's the iPad. I'm checking for no scratches. I don't see any scratches. If there is a scratch on it, I ask the students to verify that with the checkout person. Look, there's a little scratch right here. I'm going to mark it over here. Do you see anything else? Because the biggest thing that we can do is have that record. So when it comes back in, if it's entirely scratched up, water damage, whatever, we can say, hey, you signed this and said this was this way. We do have a camera over the desk, and so people have said, well, they didn't do that with me. And James can pull up the footage, and you can very clearly see people saying, look, here's the iPad. Look, I've scratched it. So we don't get that very often, but we do have the opportunity to go back and do that. The initial cases we had were cheap because we'd gotten these iPads and we needed quick sort of really, I wanted to get these out as quickly as we can. And so they were just a zippered bag with a pouch on the outside for the plug and the cable. And those worked out okay, but what we were finding is some of the common kinds of things that were coming back damaged were the corners, so obviously been pulled out of the case, and people were using it and it slipped out of their hands and dropped it. And that, I understand how that happens. You know, it's a pretty slick backing. So what we've got now is a hard neoprene, looks like black tires on the outside with a screen protector so those scratches can't get there, along with a carrying bag that includes the cable and the piece, the cord. Okay, so we just went over that piece. When the equipment comes back in, the students that are working the front desk will, again, go through the second side of that, the second column of that, so the in column. They check everything. If it comes in and it's damaged, they're to verbally speak to the patron at that point. Look, I see here that there is a crack in the corner that wasn't there when we checked it out. They'll write that note in the comments, and they'll let them know that James will be contacting them. We have to make individual decisions on those. A lot of times, if it's just a tiny scratch or a tiny nick, we won't do anything about it. We'll just let it go. If it impinges on how the equipment functions, then obviously we're going to have to charge the patrons for that. And we try not to do that as little as possible. Okay. Once they're brought back, our students put them in, plug them into our front desk machine, and they reformat them and wipe them and start over with a standard image that we're utilizing. That ensures that we're actually eliminating any student information on there. A lot of students will set up, or faculty will set up their email on there while they're on the road. And we want to make sure that that's all gone from there. Okay. So really now we're talking about iPads version 3.0 or 1.3. So I mentioned we got 150 iPads. We put 20 out to loan. We had 20 or 10 circulating within the lab, so we had some opportunities to utilize those. We gave them out to our very important friends of the innovation space. The 120 that we did for semester-long loans was really intended to get faculty to think about their teaching and learning differently. So it wasn't just you get to have iPads for the whole semester for your class because they're cool and fun. They are cool and fun, and it is a new piece to look at. But we really wanted them to be thinking about, how can I use this tool to do things differently? And so we handpicked those folks that were interested, we thought would be interested in using iPads and would be open to trying them. And we had to do that somewhat strategically because, as you know, we're Virginia Tech. Engineering is the dog that wags the tail. So the first semester we had 60 engineering students, 20 students in a senior seminar for international studies, 25 students from a package design course. I'm trying to think of the numbers. We were right close to 100, so that would put us, I think that's pretty close. So we had 3 classes that first semester. What we wanted to do is to work with the faculty very clearly to see what they could do differently. So 2 of the 3 faculty were very open to trying new things. So the faculty member in the product design course, they were utilizing these iPads out in the field, so they were going out to places where product design was occurring, so assembly lines. They could take pictures, bless you. They could write field study notes in there. They could talk about the process orally and have all of that contained in one location. They were able to come back to campus and take notes, geotag the images. They were allowed to do a lot of different things, and they could include that in sort of their final reports. The international studies professor, he went hog wild. It was wonderful. Like, it was just so exciting to see his excitement and his students' excitement. So he had the students tweeting, and he had them using CNN Reader and all kinds of things. They were studying this. I think it was sort of in the beginning of all of the unrest in Egypt, and so they were doing lots of cool things with following that and retweeting. We actually worked with him to get one of our textbook providers to provide a free ebook, bless you, so that they could go through and try this ebook reader. And the deal was that the ebook folks would collect data from our students, so we offered, our students could take their survey twice during the semester to let them know what they could do better. So we've been able to do some pretty cool things like that. When we were starting this, we had 120 iPads that needed cases, so that was sort of end of the fiscal year, so we were low on money. So we bought some really cheap cases. James, what were those, like $7 or $8 cases?
I don't remember.
Okay. That was a mistake. We're still using them, but the cases, they're just a flip-out case. The iPad slides into it, and it gets the cover gets closed over it with a rubber strap. We didn't provide a bag for the charger because we figured these were long-term loans. Students weren't going to need to be carrying these all around campus. They would go home, leave their charger in their dorm or apartment, and then charge it up as needed. So what we found is that those are getting dinged up on the edges quite a bit. The cases are going through wear and tear. They're not a good quality case. So we've replaced the cases. The cases get dirty. They have like this felt stuff on the inside. I've decided now everything needs to be wipeable, clean. It's an investment in your investment, and so think about that in terms of how you're purchasing those things. So we have utilized those this is our second full year of using those cases. We've had to buy a couple of extras just to keep things the same, but it's our intention, I think, to find something a lot more durable for that. So we had some issues with the full class loans, and I wanted to talk about this for just a second. This is where I thought Catherine would have been great to share these stories with us. So we had to get the iPads to students. So particularly when we had larger classes, if we have 25 people coming in to check in iPads all at or check out iPads all at the same time, we would either need to have extra staff on, or we would need to figure out a time when they can come in. And so it just worked out better for us to deliver the iPads to the classes, which is great when everything's in your building. Not so great when they're at the other end of campus. The wood product design course that I mentioned is actually not even on campus. It's way out. It's a mile and a half from us, out by the airport, but they have parking. So that one was not even as much of an issue as the 6 buildings away when you're trying to lug over 25 iPads. So getting the iPads to the student was a question. It also takes away time from the faculty's teaching. So we're not going to go and stand at the end of class while they're leaving and do this. We really want a good chunk of time. So probably we tell faculty 30 to 45 minutes to get the iPads checked out and get set up with the following things. So a wireless connection setup. So we want to make sure that those are getting wireless connections. And James is going to talk about in just a minute why we chose wireless and not 3G. We talk about what the apps are that are required for the classes, which is always an interesting discussion. You're giving students a $600 piece of equipment, and they want to know why they have to buy their own $399 apps. Getting the emails set up. So this has been an interesting semester for that because we are going Google any minute now, right? Sometime in October. We're going Google. That's what we've been told, sometime in October. And so half the students are still on the old email. Half the students are on Google, so getting everybody set up and in the right direction. There are lots of directions, lots of step-by-step instructions available on our answers.vt.edu, which is our knowledge base for the help desk. What we've found is that there's a lot of learned helplessness. So with technology, it seems that somebody mentioned it at an earlier session. Back in the olden days, we'd play video games, you'd actually have to put it in, and then you'd have to go to the DOS line and do all kinds of things. That was really before my time. Before my gaming time. How's that? I didn't start gaming until later. Until it was easy. You just put it in the Wii and start playing, right? I even have problems with that. But so what we found is students come out and they're like, can I borrow your iPad for a second? They'd be like, how do I turn it on? And, and really it is, we tell them, explore, try this. You're not going to break it. If something happens, bring it back to us. We'll reformat it for you. But walking them through the steps of setting up their email and setting up the wireless takes a huge amount of time. And sometimes students get it and sometimes they don't. Part of this was exacerbated by the fact that our wireless certificate was a hassle. I mean, you had to install the certificate. You had to do 14 different steps. We actually had one of our students create a video on how to do it so that students could come back and look at it because it was such a cumbersome process. And it wasn't guaranteed to work the first time. I know we had several that we had to do 4 and 5 times, and then it would magically work. So they've moved away from that certificate model. That happened this summer as well, so let's do lots of changes to these kinds of things in one semester. What's interesting about that now is that people have to be educated that it's a different process. And so that happens, there's this life cycle to your certificate. It was 12 months. So anybody that had a certificate, August on, theirs are expiring and they're getting new information on that. But Catherine did a lot of the work with us in terms of getting those out to students. She would travel with us. Usually we'd have two folks in the room. We could go through and very quickly get the iPads checked out and then work through these steps. And she just couldn't believe somehow, I can't do this. How do I get to settings? Some very basic things that we assume our students know how to do. I've never set up my email. I just check it on the web. Well, here's a way that you can do that. And really the big piece on this is educating students on their responsibilities, because we are giving them a $600 piece of equipment to check out for the entire semester. We very clearly tell them on this loan form here, I think here, they have to sign and initial each one of these pieces. And so we go over this verbally with them so that they can't say, oh, I didn't know that. The first one is that they are participating in this and with the understanding that they'll only use the equipment for acceptable use under the acceptable use policies. We did a lot of back and forth. Do we need a very specific list of things they can and cannot do with this? We really went back, and James and I thought the acceptable use was really just, it covered everything. If they didn't do it with acceptable use, then that sort of, any scenario we could think of would fall under that. So it's equipment owned by the university, obviously, and it can be required to be returned at any time. So students drop out of the class, they have to return the iPad. Now, we don't have any mechanism for checking that other than the faculty will typically email us and say, hey, Joe Smith has dropped out. I just wanted to let you know. James or I will follow up with an email and say, hey, Joe Smith, we need your iPad. In the event that the equipment is damaged, destroyed, lost, you are personally responsible for immediately notifying us. So that's number one. They must tell us that there's been a problem. And number two, they must, if it's stolen, they must notify the police department. The student themselves has to file the police report. James, how many times do you get students that, we find out from the police first that it's stolen?
Oh, that happened once. I said I've called him twice this semester.
Yeah. James is a local firefighter, so he knows a lot of the police officers as well. So they know when something comes up like this to call him first. And so we'll often get that call, and it's 3, 4, 7 days. The student hasn't actually responded. I'm thinking of.
Absolutely, and it's true. Yeah, we found out a couple times, but from the police and not the student itself, that something was stolen. Like get called for, hey, I'm looking for details on this asset. You're like, what? Okay. This police department's calling about, an inventory number. It's been reported stolen or been recovered somewhere. Like, oh, Joe Smith hasn't said a word yet. This is cute.
And it's gone. Sometimes we just wait. We're like, how long is it going to take for that person to come in? James, I think you get a little bit more antsy than I do. I'm kind of like, let it ride. Let's, is it going to come back at the end of the semester? But there's some urgency in getting the paperwork completed for inventory purposes. So usually about day 3 or 4, James will start calling and emailing and harassing. You got to come in and talk to us. You have to bring us the police report. You have to come in and we have to fill out paperwork for our end of things as well. Our insurance deductible is $1,000, so this lost stolen equipment is not going to be covered in that insurance deductible. As James mentioned earlier, all of the fees that we charge are done through our bursar, so we don't say, you got to give us a $600 check today. They have to work that out with the bursar, so they can pay over time, and we talk to students, don't be afraid to take this because of that, but be responsible for your equipment. Because these are long-term loans and we know that students are expecting to have them for 3 or 4 months at a time, we had to change the equipment loan information a little bit because for our inventory purposes, if inventory comes through in May, or let's pretend inventory comes through in February. We've just loaned out all these iPads. That's what happened, right? February. Mm-hmm. We've just loaned out all these iPads. Okay, we need to see them all. Well, they will take a sheet of paper with a signature on it as long as it's got their Hokie passport number, which is our student ID number, the serial number, and the VT asset number. So it had to have a little bit different information on it. And things like the Hokie passport number, I'm not interested in keeping and writing really anywhere else. And so we keep these, we scan them in and keep them digitally. So we've got a long-term copy of it, but we keep these the entire semester. Again, you can see in and out whether it's good or bad. We ask students to check if it's good, and we have them put an X if it's bad. They will go through and mark these, and when we go through and verify who they are, so when we sign and date it, we'll double check that information as well. So, told you the class, we check out the different pieces. When we return the iPads, so we've got 120 out this semester. We can't all have them returned at one time. We also find that it's difficult to get time in the classes because that's the end of the semester. There's exams, exam prep, final presentations. So we set up 2 or 3 3-hour windows, and we let the folks know in those classes you can return your iPads during this 3-hour window. James, last semester, how many did we have that weren't returned by the end of our open return time?
I mean, we had to really hound, say, a half dozen people.
So 6 people thought that they just didn't really need to pay attention to those rules. We do those typically the very last week of classes, so we close down the last day of exams. That's our last operating day, and we close down for 8 or 10 days to prepare and clean machines. And so we're there physically, but we're working on other things. And so we want all that equipment in so we can do good inventories and wipe them and recharge them and all that. So I think last semester you even had one that was like 3 or 4 days after the actual close of the semester that you were still working on.
My favorite was one that student she's talking about said, you know, they didn't know it was due back. And didn't know, and it was like, well, we set it the day you picked it up, formatted the due date, and then your professor has reminded you in class a couple times, he never said a word, where the other 29 people in the 30-seat class all brought it back on time. So
we make the students complete this due date. We announce it with them in class. We say these must be returned by 12/12/12, whatever the case may be. So we give it a few days before the end of the semester so we can do this. So, okay, so you want to talk about the problems, James? Here, I'll pass off the piece for there. There's Mikey, one of our student employees. We would have brought him too. He's pretty funny with his incident report.
Were we at a conference? Where were we that he sent us that picture?
Yeah.
I don't remember what conference.
I don't know where we were.
Okay. So
I think you were in Mexico. No.
Maybe. Okay, so right. So we check out 120, 140 of these things every semester, and unfortunately, not all of them come back. It wasn't something we were planning on, but it definitely happens, which makes inventory quite an ordeal. You know, we've got several replacement ones now, the ones that have been stolen or damaged to the point where they can't be repaired, and we have to get new serial numbers from the folks that do the inventory control on campus. So now we've got, you know, sheets that have 3 different lines of replacement serial numbers and things like that. So every time inventory comes around now, it's very interesting. We'll get a list of these are missing, and then we have to go through and say, well, we reported this one to you stolen on this date, and we reported this one to you or damaged on this date and replaced, and it's been an ordeal.
We live in a pretty small town. I can tell you was very new to me. People feel pretty safe. Their equipment's pretty safe. When Christmas time comes around, the UPS box that you can drop boxes into, when that's full, people just pile boxes on top of it, and no one bothers them. So we really, I mean, and we have had iPads that people have found places on campus and returned to us because they're just, we are in probably lulls us into a feeling of security that maybe, obviously, we shouldn't have everywhere else. You can walk across the street and the cars aren't going to hit you, not like here. It's just we live in a different environment. So.
Very true. But to a step further than that, we had one student report his stolen. Okay, well, tell me the details of it. So he left his book bag in a common area in the building while he went to class. And when he came back, it was gone. And he said, I shouldn't have left it there. Somebody's camera got stolen there last week.
Right? I know.
Okay, so, and I'd say there's pictures after this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's stolen. And we have ones come back damaged, too. Now, damage is one of those things where, stop drinking water. Okay.
No.
They're way over there. Sorry. Damage is a thing that, again, maybe we weren't necessarily ready for the extent of some of the things that have come back, and we'll look at some pictures. But late returns, we handle late returns daily. And we've been gone for 3 days from work, and I'm going to have a stack of people to contact when we get back about stuff that's late. In those 3-day checkouts, That's week, every day there's someone who's late, and then I have to call, email something, and track them down.
Mikey actually sent us an email Thursday. Sent it to the whole list, our whole listserv, but said this equipment's missing and this equipment's late, and don't do this. So there's good students in terms of keeping track of this, and they very are clear about marking in the in and out dates, and when it's late, they'll highlight it and give it to James. So good process for that.
That's what happens when I leave town. Talking about equipment Nazis, someone said in a session yesterday how they have a person in their group who always refers to something as like, someone broke my camera, or like, hey, that's my, and I say that too, but I don't know. I guess I feel like it's the idea of ownership. Like somebody in the group has to take ownership of the stuff to care for it. Whether I want to care for 100 pieces of equipment or not, they're mine. So if inventory control scans them, it's got my name on it. So I guess it's mine. Oh, Mikey sent this to us. It's a picture. So we were gone at a conference. I don't remember where. Student came in, reported his stolen, brought the police report in. So that's the notification I got from my student that it was something had been stolen. So in the sessions when we go to the classrooms and tell the kids how to check their email, how to turn them on, we also talk about the Find My iPad service, or the Find My iPhone, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it's a free service from iCloud, Apple. If nobody doesn't already use it, it's a freebie, so go ahead and use it. It can't hurt to have. There's lots of paid services out there you can do as well. There are apps you can download and install, but this one's baked into the OS. You sign up for an @me.com account, an iCloud account. You don't have to use the email, the notes, the calendar syncing, all that stuff. You can just turn on Find My device. So it works with everything. Actually works with phones, iPads, laptops, everything. So I tracked my phone earlier today. So you can see I was apparently on Tropicana Ave. Yep.
It's right here.
So, and you can do different things too. If you look in the top right, there's actually functions you can do. You can say, play a sound, and your phone will, so it's lost in the couch cushion somewhere. The dot's going to show on your house. It's not going to show the couch, unfortunately. Apple Maps isn't that good. Hit them while they're down. They fixed the Brooklyn Bridge, if anyone is interested. Brooklyn Bridge is correct now. You can hit the button that says play a sound. It'll start beeping, and you can walk around your place and go, oh, it's in the couch cushion. You've also got different things. You can hit lost mode, and it'll lock it so it won't work anymore. You can also erase it, and that was added for people who complained, enterprise stuff, business people who said, I've got secrets on my phone, which I don't know who carries secrets on their phone, but you can remotely wipe it as well. So
we're finding my iPhone.
So like I said, handy if you can't find it in your apartment or house or anything like that. But the bonus of this is we tell these students it's free. It's not important. It's not going to hurt. Just do it. And then when the student comes and says, my thing was stolen, we go, OK, can you log into your account and let's track it? Oh, I didn't set that up. Immediately, that's another level of responsibility and less complaining later when we tell them we're going to charge them $700. But it does actually work, or I can at least give you one documented case in our 2 or 3 years of doing this that it actually worked. Student comes in and says, my iPad's been stolen. We're talking about iPads. My iPad's been stolen. Here's the police report. And it was like, OK, well, did you set that up? Yeah, I did. Let's track it. It was in Florida. Sure enough, dot on the map. And we put the onus on the student to track it down. He actually called that town's police department and says, my iPad's been stolen. Here's the info. They literally tracked it down, found the guy, iPad recovered. Wow. Yes, actually worked. If I was a thief, I would erase it immediately, but I'm not a thief, so.
That was a fascinating story because we asked 3 or 4 times how that got tracked down, and it was like the information came in dribs and drabs. Oh, it was in Florida. Well, did you know who had it in Florida? No, the police got it for me. And we said, like, we just want that story to be able to tell people. Just tell us what happened. You're not in trouble anymore.
It's true. Like if I pulled up tomorrow in a brand new car, like, a Bentley, and a tuxedo on, you'd be like, what happened last night? And I'd be like, I won a game.
Yeah. What game, James?
Yeah.
Where were you?
Oh.
Like, it was very interesting.
Right, yeah.
We also had one guy come in, and he had lost it. I've already called my mom. So mom was the first stop, and then.
So if you have these things, sign up for it. It's free. Like I said, it works for your laptops, your desktops too. I mean, at the same time, I tracked my laptop, and it really did show me sitting eating breakfast this morning in the Tropicana. So that was pretty cool. Damage. So damage is varied. Damage can be as little as a scratch on the screen. This one was a good one. This kid comes in. Oh no, I'm sorry. This wasn't. This is what Jennifer's talking about. Talking about a small town. A lady brought this in. Works in the library. I found this in a parking lot. So I set it on my desk and waited, because by the looks of it, it had long vertical scratches on it, and she found it in a parking lot. I said, somebody put it on the top of their car with some other stuff, got in, drove away, and it's skidded across the parking lot. So I waited. I looked up what student had it, and I waited. I was like, surely this guy's freaking out, and he's going to call us and say he's lost it. I waited 2-3 days. He never said a word. So called him, emailed him. He never answered, left messages. It was like a week before, and we actually got to the point where we went to the instructor and said, is this kid showing up for class? I mean, is he dead somewhere? We don't know it. Like, and she said, that sounds about typical for this kid, that he'd be that scatterbrained. So we brought him in, showed him the damage. I mean, there's long vertical scratches on it, and the corner was eaten away. So yeah, it took a hard fall and then a skid. We showed it to him and said, you're going to have to pay for this repair. Do you want to pay for it now, or do you want to keep using this semester because it's so functional and we'll charge you at the end of the semester? He opted for end of the semester. When he returned it, we charged him for the repair, had it repaired, gave it out next semester. A year later, when he went to graduate, he came in and said, what is this charge on my account? And I said, from when you left your iPad skidded across your parking lot? He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I couldn't believe that someone had this. How did this miss your brain? You know, how did this get out of your brain? I showed him the pictures. I showed him the emails. And he just blank face. And I said, how much weed do you smoke? You need to cut down. Okay? To the more extreme, this one came back. It was hit so hard. Is the next picture?
Yeah.
You can actually see the imprint of the circuit board and the edge of the aluminum frame in the smashed glass. So this
still worked.
How'd this happen? Student took his book bag to his frat party, and someone decided to punt his book bag like a football. So that was that through the case. And actually, now this is a good picture. This is one of the cases that we've used, and we talked about. See how the corners are exposed. And so every time someone's dropped one, that's the damage we're seeing with this particular Stella case. Something maybe you never thought of as an individual. You know, you care about your device, but it's your device. We loan these there, so it's not actually theirs. I guess they don't care about it as much. But the corners get dinged a lot in this Stella case. So it's something to look out for. Yeah.
All right, so we really initially started out, we have, yep.
Oh, sorry.
Sure.
One more question to ask about your loss of installer.
Absolutely.
Have you used, I know that Apple, at least online, they offer this engraving, amazing, happy birthday, Dad, or whatever. Have you considered putting the ownership and our return information, names on the back?
We haven't, it gets stickered, and I know people can pull stickers off, but I don't know, I mean, that's just not something we talked about. Yes? Oh, sure. Have we thought about engraving return information on the back of them? We haven't at this point. James knows how to do that. Maybe we'll put James on that over Christmas break.
Actually, and one thing I forgot to talk about, repair costs. So Apple charges a blanket like $249 or something like that, a little over $200, blanket repair costs, no matter what it is. If the power button's sticky, $200. If it's completely destroyed, $200. It's the same charge no matter what. We've looked at other vendors. and we've had work done by a lot of vendors outside. So things like replacing the front glass, the digitizer, I think it's 170, 180, something like that from an outside vendor, and that's pretty common across the board. But we've raised questions amongst ourselves, like, how does this affect the warranty? We're trying to do a cheaper repair for the student because we're trying not to be too hard on them. We just want our device fixed and back. But questions like, does that affect the warranty? And then things like, how do we pay for it? Finding somebody who takes POs was really difficult and works with our universities, billing, things like that.
Yeah. So that's through Apple?
Apple's like a blanket $240 charge. There are definitely a ton of other companies out there that will do repairs for you. But the question of like, how will it affect the warranty, things like that.
But do you have to sign up for that, or is that just if you can choose to get it repaired by Apple, it's a flat charge?
That's
Yes.
correct.
So you don't sign up for that as like almost like insurance?
No.
No.
Mm-mm. So Jenny,
And
What's the turnaround time for the repairs, or is that dependent on what the problem is?
what's the turnaround time for the repairs?
Apple's very quick, less than a week. Other companies, not so much. I mean, fairly quick. It's still in the less than 2-week time frame.
Sure.
But Apple's very quick. They'll send you a box with an overnight label. They'll overnight it to, I want to say maybe Texas. Gets repaired in another day, and then overnight it to you again. So if you started on Monday, you'll have it by Thursday or Friday. And as far as engraving, we engraved some devices early on, but we had to do special orders, and it adds maybe a week or two to the time frame. And then a lot of these purchases were done with year-end money, like where the administrator realized, I've got 2 weeks left in the fiscal year and this much money, and he likes to come around and go, hey, can you spend this in this amount of time?
Yes, we can.
And we have to have it received. Yeah, we're really good at spending money if you want. If anybody wants to give me some money, I'll show you how to do it. But yeah, that's why we didn't consider laser engraving on these. But it is an option, and actually I do know of a company that
Do it for us.
fairly local that if you ever wanted to.
So as the course of the loans, we've got about 2 more minutes, so we'll go quickly here. As the course of loans increase, we got more demands for apps. So on the 10 loans, 10 iPads or 20 iPads that we loan out over the counter, we've added some apps to that, things like Pandora, QR code readers, an augmented reality app. So things that we know faculty are asking about or interested in, they can come and try it. Again, everyone is welcome to add their own apps to it. If they make purchases or they get them for free, they can do it through their own account. They just sign in on the iPad and they can download them from there. You can see when we started in the spring of 2010, we had a good deal of loans. That was the first semester they were out. We were very excited. People were interested in that. And then we sort of fell in the fall, spring of 2011, and then we decided to open it up to students because we decided we were beyond that try before you buy. This was really more of a tool for education. And so you'll notice for one semester already, we've done more than we did all summer this year. So, or 1 month of the semester, we've done more than we did all summer. And it's actually been pretty surprising. 2 or 3 times we've gone to loan them out, and I open the drawer and it's empty. And that was just something I didn't really expect. I didn't think people would want an iPad for a week, but apparently they do. So, sorry. So frequently asked questions we get from people, can I keep this for the whole semester? No. If your professor wants to do this, it's great. You can check it out for a week, bring it back, come back the next day and check it out again. Can you loan me projection cables? Yes, we've added that because we got that question so often. My favorite, why don't you give us a keyboard too? Well, we're already spending $600 on the iPad and we can't afford another $30 for each of you. I mean, we could, but so there's one additional piece of this. So I think when we particularly work with faculty in these long-term class loans, we really want to get the faculty to understand, like, if you're having them buy an app, think about that in place of a textbook. Or if students want a keyboard, let them know that that's $30, but they could get a Bluetooth that could be used with other devices as well. So it's a lab fee. It's same things if I had to buy goggles for my, for a chemistry class. And can you put X, Y, and Z app on this for me? I absolutely need Angry Birds. No, you don't. So, oops.
We had a university,
an
hire
employee.
a person, yeah.
Yeah. Who an employee who picked
Didn't realize the credit card receipt would say
Angry Birds.
what he bought.
So as a result of that, we were when we first started this, we were using departmental credit card and making our purchases. That became impossible because of that. We had a new edict passed that we could no longer do that to the department credit card. So we've now started. We're working with the Apple Volume Purchase Program. If you haven't done that, that's terrific if you can get that negotiated through your legal department. Most apps, if you buy more than 19, you get it for half price. And so things like the Word or Pages, Numbers, Keynote, we just buy 9 or 20 of those. We only install one, but we've got the licenses stored so that if Apple comes back to us and says, let us see that you've purchased all of those, we've got those available. We want student success, but should we spoon feed them? So part of this is, we need them to understand how to work this, but we also want them to take risks and be challenged by this technology. We must use the checkout form fully. Every single time we do this, we'll have a student come back or a faculty member come back and say, that scratch was there when I checked it out. Well, you didn't mark it on there, and you were here with us when we marked it up and we verified that with you. Part of that becomes working with our staff as well to say, you must check every piece of this. Be diligent. Be James when you're doing this. Check every corner, check every piece of it. And we must inform students of their responsibilities. And so we do that in writing. A lot of students will say, well, I just signed that. I didn't know what I was signing. I said, well, you're 18 years old. This is binding. You need to start reading stuff before you sign it. So, and that was it.
We just have time for about 1 or 2 questions.
Yeah.
How long does it take to re-image iPad?
How long does it take to re-image the iPad, James?
I mean, less than 20 minutes. But it's still, I mean, we're, no.
Are we using software for that?
There's really 2 options. You can do just straight through iTunes, or you can go straight through iTunes and do it, or you can use Apple Configurator, which is a new tool that's been released in, say, the last maybe 6 months that Apple has put out for bulk handling iPads. It can work with, any operating system. It's an app. If you go to the App Store and look for iPad Configurator, I believe is the name of it, or just Apple Configurator maybe, you'll find that. We load out like 36, 38 apps, something like that. So the base OS, the 38 apps. We put sample files on it as well. We include a couple instructional videos. We include some music files, some picture files, things like that. So there's a bunch of sample files too. So if the idea is you really are trying before you buy it, we provide all the stuff then that we can give a demo with then to the person. So if we were just doing the standard like iOS 6 and nothing else, it'd be very quick. But we're loading out a bunch of stuff, so it's in the 15 to 20 minute range per.
Sure. In the red.
You mentioned that when you move to full semester long, you want to help transform the teaching and learning aspect of the instructions. Can you talk a bit about how specifically you're encouraging them to use iPad in the classroom?
Sure. So how are we encouraging faculty to utilize those iPads in new and interesting ways? That often involves a series of meetings with the INNOVATIONSPACE staff. So talking with faculty about what their learning outcomes are, thinking about apps that can maybe change the way we do things. So my favorite thing that's happening this semester, I have a professor teaching Comp 1. She's using that students can write their papers on their computers or the iPads or whatever they want. But they all bring them together in Dropbox, and then they do what she calls speed dating peer review. So they pull up iAnnotate PDF. They will sit with a person for 3 minutes and give 6 changes that need to be done. And they sit up and move, and they do it for the next person, and then they do it for the next person. And so they're able to utilize the technology to very rapidly get feedback, collect that feedback, and show. So all of that feedback goes onto one iPad, their own screen, and they can archive that. And when they submit their revisions to the professor, she can see the first one, the revisions and comments that people have given. So you're assessed on the comments you've given as well, the final copy, and then she goes through and gives oral and written comments on it. So she says it's terrific for her because she's able to go through and give a much richer, oh, you should be thinking about this, or the nuances here. She's able to give a much richer feedback, and she does that through the iPad. So that's just one example. But we try to find examples. We try to find ways that would have fit. If a faculty member says to me, I want to do X, Y, and Z, we'll try and find an app that fits or a way for us to do that better, differently.
We are out of time, and there is another session after.
Okay.
So I'd like to thank Jennifer and James for
Thank you. If you do have any questions, this is the easiest one to remember. James is fireman at vt.edu. It's very simple. But you can ask either one of us questions as well.
And your contact information is in the proceedings as well.
Yep.
I'm sure they would be glad.
Perfect. And we'll
Gladly.
post this in the proceedings as well. Thank you. Thank you.